You're watching the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, the show for men and women over 40 who want to thrive in midlife. I'm your host, Bernie Borges. Prepare to be inspired, educated, challenged, or maybe all three on this episode of the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. Dr. Juliana Otieno, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you today, and it's an honor and a privilege to be featuring you and hosting you here at ND Studios at the University of Notre Dame campus. Dr. Juliana, if I may call you that going forward.
Yes, please.
I'd like to begin our conversation with your childhood, your upbringing. You grew up on a farm in Kenya, a sugarcane farm, I believe.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that led you eventually to becoming a pediatrician?
Thank you, Bunny. I'm a firstborn of 16 children. My mother gave birth to 8 girls in a row, and then the last few were boys. So the girls were taught hard work, and the boys were spoiled and pampered. My dad, despite us being a large family in the sugarcane farm, the girls had to do the farm work and help mom and dad. And despite that, my dad made sure that we all went to school. He was able to look for money he was not working, he was just relying on the sugarcane. So being the firstborn, the rules were a bit tight for me, so I had to do better than everybody. And I'm happy that his strictness and my mom's softness made me what I am. And I went to primary school in the village. Then I joined a national high school. That was an eye-opener.
Why? Why was that an eye-opener?
I saw a different world. The housing was different.
Okay.
My rural village, we had mud floor, mud walls. There was water from the river, firewood from the farm. You go collect it. But my high school was like, wow, there was electricity all out throughout. The school was good. There was a change of food. There was no longer my local food that we're eating every day. And, the learning experience and meeting the girls from the rich families was just an eye-opener. So, and my mom told me, when you go to that school, make sure you work hard, my daughter. That's why I met in our Form 4. We did 6 years that time. The education system has changed in Kenya a lot. So as for us, those years, that is 73 to 78 was Form 1 up to Form 6. In Form 5, we had to have a career talk with the teacher. I had a good chemistry teacher from Britain. And he told me, we were applying either for college, university, whatever course. And I had written nursing and teaching because that's what my father told me. My father wanted me to be a nurse and my father wanted me to be a teacher. So that was my choice. But he said, Juliana, you are so good. I don't think you should be a doctor. Do you mind if I fill your career form as a doctor? I said, no.
And how old were you at that time about?
I was about 15, 16.
Okay.
I was like, there's no problem, just go ahead. But I won't tell my dad yet until the results come out. So when the results come out, I did very well, and I was actually it was for the university in medical school, Nairobi. By that time, we only had one medical school in Nairobi, and it was 5-year course.
5? Yeah.
But before I joined the university, I actually got married. I had an early marriage. So during the holidays, I got married. I got a calling letter. I'm already married. I have a 1-month-old kid. So I'm like, my kid will stay with my mom, and I would go to college. My husband was a farm manager, so he was staying in the farm. So when I went to college, the driving force was, of course, to finish quickly and join my family. After that, I got posted to this large provincial hospital in my region in Kisumu. Kisumu is near on the lake of Lake Victoria. That is the largest freshwater lake in Africa. Lots of fish. And, that hospital was also an eye-opener. In our medical school, our teaching and referral hospital, yes, we had medical cases. We had people who were sick. But this hospital, the children's illnesses was just impossible.
Mm.
It was such a variety. And I had kids by now. I had 3 kids.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God, my children has passed through all these diseases. We had malaria, we had pneumonia, we have diarrhea, we have a terrible form of cancer. And by that time, my children were that age where that cancer is very common. So each time I'll go back to the house, I look at the jaw, I look at the abdomen. Could they be developing the cancer? You know, that fear?
Right.
So and then the mortality for children was very high. I just decided I love the children's and I must work in the children's ward. The good thing I met the nurse in charge was really a nice lady. We worked together as a team and she was like, you would be a good pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
So time came, I applied, got accepted again. I had to be away from my family for another 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I made sure it was really minimum 3 years so that I come back
Right.
and join them. And the beauty is once I finished, I came back to the same hospital.
Okay.
And that is the hospital I worked for.
As a pediatrician.
As a pediatrician. I was the only pediatrician of 11 years. Life was tough. And that was the only regional hospital that was serving about 5 million people.
Wow.
And we would get children from all over. And it was, what I did was, because I was the only pediatrician, it was easy to make rules when you work alone. So I got a team of medical assistants, the nurses, and the community health workers. And we decided, how will we make sure the children reach the referral hospital? Because access is quite a problem. Even up to now, access to the hospital is a problem because of the distance. The road network is public transport. People pay the hospital out of pocket. So we had a team and we were just like, thank God the mobile phone also was just coming.
Mm.
So like, okay, give them my number. They'll call us when they're in trouble and we'll be ready for the children.
Yeah.
So we made a difference and I'm happy that I worked there for long. Then 2007, I became in charge of the same hospital. I was the CEO.
Of the entire hospital.
Of the entire hospital. So for 2007.
Did you see that coming?
No, I did not see it coming.
Did you welcome it?
Oh, initially I was given the position in April, but my husband passed away in April 2007. So I was like, nope, I don't want any responsibility. Then in July, I was like, then I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I tried it until 2018 when I retired.
So
I was
years.
the CEO, but I was also the only pediatrician. I got another pediatrician in 2013.
During that time, were you only the CEO or were you also practicing as a pediatrician?
I was also practicing as a pediatrician.
Wow.
So I had to have a team back in the ward to make sure the children were really taken care of, and then I will be consulted. But I made sure that I'll see the children early in the morning. By 7 o'clock, I'm in the ward. I will leave at 6. See the children, do a last round, then go home. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. In these few minutes, you have recapped your life from a young child through your formative years of early education, through your medical education, through your career as a pediatrician, and then as a CEO of a hospital, the same hospital where you studied early and then you came back after further studies. It's a fascinating background. Of course, you have been through the Inspired Leadership Initiative program here at the University of Notre Dame. So why don't you fast forward to that experience, but specifically what drove you, what brought you from Kenya, Africa, to South Bend, Indiana, to invest the time and the energy and the emotion into the ILI program?
Yeah. You know, after retirement in 2018, I was like, I'd had enough.
Yeah.
Too much work and I needed a rest. And a friend of mine who is here, Dr. Bernard Nalin, he sent me the link and said, I think you need a break from Kenya, from all that. What else I'd done, I'd just taken a break and I was just in my village, on the farm, resting and doing nothing. So when I got that link and I said, let me apply. That will be a good break away from home, away from family.
So the link came to you from a friend?
Yeah. Yes, the link came from a friend.
Okay.
And he suggested, why don't you try this? This may be a good program for you because it's for retired people like you. I understand you have now retired. I said, yes, I'm retired and I want to get away from home and get something new. something new that will make me think of what next.
Mm-hmm.
Because back at home, I was like thinking, what next? I didn't want to go into private practice. I think I'd seen too many children to do private practice. So when I got the invite and I got the application and I was accepted, I was like, yes, I'll take it. I'll take it and come. And we came the first time just to see the campus, and I was like, when I entered here, it was like, wow, this is great. I'll come back. We came in July, and the program was starting in, was it October? November? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll be back. I'll be here for the next few months.
What was it about that stage in your life that really positioned you to welcome the opportunity to go through a program like the Inspired Leadership Initiative program?
What caught my eye was it was really a leadership kind of fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
Had been a leader. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something new that I could get from this leadership fellowship. And, being inspired was like, okay, even though I'm retired from public, I'm not that old. I can still be inspired to do something else. So so that's really what inspired me. The title itself and then the kind of the program that they had was really amazing because you are going back to go to class. Okay, so I've retired, but I can go back to class, be with undergrads. You can either teach them, you will be taught, you'll be taking assignments if you want. And the beauty was there was no exams. So that was like, oh, good, I'll go for this. And also to meet new people. Usually when you are in a place, meeting new people really makes a difference. And
right.
I did meet my cohort. Oh, they were such wonderful. We were 15 of us.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that experience, meeting these other cohorts from different walks of life. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was amazing. So I was the only one from Africa. Then we had Gloria, who is African American. So the rest were all Americans. Okay? So it was like, we didn't know one another. We had read little bit of the bio. But, we said, why can't we discuss about who we are? So everybody was deciding who was to start first. Then I said, I'll start first. I'll introduce myself. So I stood first and I was like, I just gave my story the way I'm telling you now. And they were like, did you have that written down? I said, no, my life, I know it offhand. So it was we had 1 week of everybody, would meet once a week for dinner. So we'd have time to go around and people discuss who they are, what are their aspirations, why did they come to ILI, what is their family. And some people really gave us real nice stories. Others gave very little. They were a little bit conservative, which was fine because this is a new group. You don't know how far you want to give your story. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty good. And from there on, we were looking forward to our Wednesday dinner. We would meet every Wednesday dinner and we would continue talking.
Right.
Continue discussing of our stories.
During the program, did you take any classes with Notre Dame students?
Yes. Oh, yes, I did. We did. I took the philosophy. That was amazing. I read Socrates and Plato many years back. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, this book still exists. So I took philosophy. I took international development. And during the international development is when this idea of, maybe going back a bit, before I joined high school, my dad didn't have money. I was called to a high national school, which was quite expensive. My mom went around the community seeking support. So it's the community people who donated money to take me to high school. So when I qualified as a doctor, I said, I'll give back to the community. Mm-hmm. So I started looking for children who have passed to go to high school, but they don't have money. The parents are very few. So I started doing that. So now when I was here now, that was during international development, we were supposed to come up with what do we want, what can you do, what have you been doing that you can make it better in this program. And I think that was quite a push. And also having met my fellow cohorts, we had shared with them what had been doing. They were like, that's pretty good. Go ahead, do a write-up. So I did a write-up, and it was kind of panel beaten by my cohort, some of my cohort team. It was panel beaten by Chris and the other members. And it was like, well, let's go. What's the way forward now? So we had it registered, and it is called Rusalia Resource Foundation. That takes care of girls from poor families to high school. Rusalia is the name of my late mom, and my mom is the one who made me go to school. Mm-hmm. My dad said we're so poor, but my mom didn't give up. She said even if you're poor, she could reach out to a few friends.
Just hearing your story about your childhood, and I'm hearing it for the first time. I intentionally wanted to wait until we're actually recording this interview to hear it for the first time. I could tell, even though both your parents were clearly very influential, I could tell that your mom specifically was very influential. Regarding your foundation, talk to me a little bit about the board, because the board is from here, Inspired Leadership Initiative here at Notre Dame, and I would imagine that that board has been extremely helpful and influential in getting the whole foundation off the ground, getting the 501c3 status and all that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the board, after I had written the write-up and were like, yes, this is what I want to continue doing, I had to register it in Kenya as well. So in Kenya, I registered as a non-governmental organization. So with that Kenyan registration, it was now easy to come to the U.S. and talk to my friends. Carrie Shine, she's the president of the board. She's been a great friend. She's been really useful. Then we have Dr. Bernard Nalin. We have Father Bob Dowd. We have Jamie. We have Bill Shiner, who was my cohort. Then Orlando, who was also in my cohort. And they've done a great job. So for the US board, they help to fundraise. And it's really through donations, friends, you telling a friend having a heart to support the children. So I also have a board back home in Kenya, and I'm the director, I'm the chairman. I have the vice chair and the treasurer and all that. Mm-hmm. So this is really an organization that is well recognized, well known. We are doing tax filing, we are doing all the requirements. And right now we have 30 children. Right now we have 30, but 3 have graduated. So in total we have had 33. And we are soon hoping now next year, from January, we'll be having 36. Mm-hmm. Because we think, some are dropping. Our schooling is 4 years. Okay. So this year, we are dropping, 4 girls are finishing Form 4. Then after Form 4, they're either eligible for college or university. So the Form 4, the 4s, there will be space for 4 people. Okay. But we want to bring on board also another lot that can make it reach 36. Right. Yes.
Now, when you entered the ILI program, was that part of your vision, was to create a foundation, or how did that happen?
Not really. It wasn't. It was something at the back of my mind, and I was just wondering, how on earth will I approach people? You know, you don't approach people that you've just met with something so grave. But this international development class project really gave me the opportunity to fine-tune, to reach out to people, and to get their ideas. Is it something good? Is it that doable? Because in the international development class, there was also a school project that was being done in South Sudan, and the director was also a graduate from here. So that was like, okay, I want to be in that group of discussion so that I get the ideas of how he developed it. Unfortunately for him, he had to build the school. But for me, the schools are already there. It's just a matter of looking these girls from poor families. And the girls must go to school so that they bring back to the community. Mm-hmm. They become better citizens. Mm-hmm. In my community, the girl child is like not taken. If you have only girls, when are you getting a boy? You're being asked. So the male child is seen as a figure of continuity or authority. Mm-hmm. So for me, also being a girl who has gone to school, some men still say, okay, because you've gone to school, you must be great. But if I had not gone to school, nobody will be looking up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you are leaving a mark in this world through the foundation,
Yes.
well, of course, through all the work that you did for decades as a pediatrician and also as a CEO of the hospital in your town. But this foundation is really having an impact. When you look back on your time at the Inspired Leadership Initiative during the time that you spent here, which was an entire academic year, what are maybe some of the highlights? I know you've spoken to them a little bit, but I want you to go back and think some more about some of those highlights, maybe some of the relationships that you formed during your time here at Notre Dame in the ILI program.
Yeah. So thanks. You know, our cohort of 15, it was like, as I was discussing the foundation, it was really one-on-one. Having been a CEO of a hospital, you get results when you talk to people individually, not in a group. So that was my strategy. So individually, I would go to each one of them and share with them, this is what I have, what do you think? And they'll give me the ideas. And then would you want to join my team? So I'll be very happy to say that Phil White, I gave him the idea and he wrote the first draft on paper.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was like, oh, this is a true friend. You know, those are friends who can help you do such things. So individually, every person contributed, and it was like, yeah. So I think this is something that can materialize. So my being here and having been in the program was really like an eye-opener. Can I do this in a much more organized, recognizable way that even when I'm gone, the foundation will still be there.
Right.
So that was really the driving force.
Right.
Yes.
I'm curious, Dr. Juliana, do you consider yourself retired?
In Kenya, we say retired but not tired. So I'm actually lecturing at a local medical school, which is private Catholic. It's called Uzima University in Kisumu. It's been there for the last 12 years. Still small, but now it's growing. So I'm still able to give back to the community. And I think I'm not really retired. And the good news is I'm a pediatrician, so I take the medical students to the pediatric ward where I used to work. And maybe just for something, the pediatric ward, we managed to get funds to have it built. So it was designed by me as the only pediatrician and the nurses that were working with me. So I'm so happy still to go back to that same pediatric ward. Of course, the children are still very sick. The various diseases are still there. So I'm happy to contribute again still, even though in my retirement, I'm not doing private practice, but I'm able to see the children in the public hospital during the ward rounds when I'm teaching the medical students. Yes.
And while you were here on campus during the ILI program, and you interacted with students here at Notre Dame, were there any conversations you had with students that you feel were impactful either to you based on that conversation or perhaps to those students?
Yes. In fact, some of the students, when they learned that I'm from Kenya, I'm a doctor, I'm interested in educating girls, a few of them were interested, and some of them actually wrote their projects because the students have to write projects. So they wrote projects on education. And I remember we have always been having international development class. They were always, for the 2 consecutive years, their projects was on Rusalia Resource Foundation, the education system or the educating girls through whatever means. That was kind of nice. And we would Zoom chat. So the students here would Zoom chat with the girls there in Kenya. You know, some of them are not seeing a white person. Some of them had not talked on Zoom. So that was quite challenging. That was very nice. So that also made the girls okay, we are known. So I must work hard for that. Then this year, one student actually visited Kenya. And I was with him for 6 weeks.
Wow.
He was trying to assess the mentorship program, because we also provide mentorship to these girls. You know, just paying the school fees and leaving the girls is not good enough, because these are girls from disadvantaged upbringing. Some of them are orphans, so they're living alone in the home, or the home is not stable, something like that. Sometimes the school is very hostile to a girl who is in the teenage age. So this student, he came and he just wanted to see the mentorship program. He went around the schools, and I think he's writing his paper. I've not met him, but I hope he will write his paper, and his paper will give him good credit because of the foundation. So he was with me for 6 weeks. He enjoyed his time. Yeah.
Have you encountered conversations with others just out there as you do life where you thought to that individual, maybe you should look into the Inspired Leadership Initiative? Have you encountered people who might actually benefit from this program?
Yes. In fact, before I left, there was another nurse that I was able to reach out to. She was here. She was in the next cohort. She was in the 4th cohort.
Okay.
So it's only this 5th cohort that we need to get somebody. So I hope Emily will be able to get somebody who is interested. What is happening is people think America is so far away, and being away for 9 months from family is something but for me, my kids were big, my grandchildren were okay with me being out, and they would like, okay, go to America and come back, Grandy. So that was fine. So usually it's just the family ties. So I've been able to bring one person. She's called Clementine. Very nice nurse. In fact, she's part of my mentorship program.
Okay.
Mentor in the Rusalia Resource Foundation. She's a nurse, midwife, reproductive health. So we are able to discuss sex with the girls. There's no sex discussion. In my community, sex is a taboo.
Right.
So the girls are lost. Basic things the girls don't know.
Right.
If the mothers didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So and then sometimes they learn not the good things from the other girls. So I think the mentorship program that we have is really good. So yes, God willing, next year we'll be able to convince somebody to apply to the ILI program in Notre Dame. It's really a good program. It's really nice. Yeah.
Dr. Juliana, the word that's coming to my mind right now as I'm having this conversation with you to describe you is that you're a giant. I don't mean in your height. I mean in terms of your humanity and the impact that you have had on so many people in your local community. And what you're doing is just so admirable. Why don't you give us a closing thought as it pertains to just anyone at any stage of midlife who's just kind of considering, what their next stage of life might be, and just give us a closing thought on that.
Yeah, so thank you. It's always, in midlife, it's always to look back how you started, what lives you've impacted on. I have seen through so many medical students, so many young doctors. We have, after the college, we have 1 year internship, intensive. And if the intern doctor is not strong, and if they don't have a strong support, they will not make it. So I was always there for those young doctors. And when I was a CEO, it was like my decision was final. So if the other doctors didn't feel this doctor didn't do a good job, but they will all come to me. Then, of course, my motherhood instinct would really look at in depth. Is what you're telling me the truth about this doctor? I have to check it. So usually I look back and I see the doctors. In fact, right now, most of them have done postgraduate. Some of them are still doing postgraduate. When they see me, they're like, thank you so much, Mom. You did a lot to us. Thank you for supporting me. So I think that in the midlife, it's not just that, now I've retired, so get out. No, there's still something good that you can do, and you can still give back, because have an open kind of avenue where people are able to access you. So I'm really easily accessible. They can reach to me. I'm also interested in research. So the students, postgraduate, undergraduate, they must do research. So I'm there for them. So they reach out to me, even if I'm not their lecturer, I'm not there, Yeah, so I think having that avenue of being open, be not just for the people that you know, but even for people that you don't know. So in the community, my home is open to people.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
As I said, you're a giant, and I really thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Midlife Fulfilled podcast here at ND Studios on campus at the University of Notre Dame. It's been an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you. and to share you with my listeners and the world. Thank you so much for the contribution that you're making to the world.
Thank
Dr.
you so
Juliana.
much. I really appreciate. Thank you.